Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Actionable Insights. My name is Joseph Maxwell. This is a practical podcast for e-commerce and content managers, with my goal being to give you insights as to how you can optimize your website and your brand. I think it happens to me, and I think it happens to most people. We get this writer's block. We get this we're unable to continue. It seems like we've optimized the website as much as we can. We are getting okay sales, but how do we break past this? How do we shatter that glass ceiling and be able to move to step number 2, or take this business, this website that we're maintaining, to the next level? If you haven't done so already, though, this is a side note, would you take a moment to subscribe to this Actionable Insights podcast? I'm confident you're going to find, or at least I hope you'll find, this episode and future ones super helpful. In addition, you can read very detailed show notes from this episode and our other previous ones on our website, actionableinsights.fm/episode 5. Very, very detailed show notes that you can read, take from what we discussed here in this podcast today. Our special guest is Ethan Thompson from Simplified Safety. I've had the pleasure of working with him for several years now, and every time I work with him, exchange emails and just able to chat, I'm super impressed with his work ethic, as well as his ability to be able to look at the big picture of this problem that he's solving. Obviously, great at SEO, content marketing, etc., but he's able to look at a page, figure out what can he do to break past this writer's block that we often run into. And so I'm really excited to bring him on today to be able to share some of his learnings, his great successes. And obviously, we're going to be looking at how can you take action from the insights that are being shared today. So without further ado, I would love to bring Ethan here and introduce him.
Thanks, Joseph. I appreciate you having me on. I've been an avid listener the last couple episodes, so I appreciate the insights that you're trying to share with everybody. I think that's awesome. There's not enough resources like this that we can just share with everybody and kind of share the knowledge so freely. So appreciate being a part of that. Like you said, my name is Ethan Thompson. I've been with Simplified Safety for a little over 3 years now. I'm currently in Europe, managing the marketing teams here, and just recently moved here from the US. And in the US and Canada, we were working with businesses providing fall protection solutions, primarily through initial online requests for information or pieces or contact forms, and then kind of guiding people through what they need to keep their workers safe and also reduce liability for their businesses so they can feel secure in what they're asking their employees to do, as well as secure in the future of their businesses.
I think it's such an incredible value proposition there, right? I mean, you're helping people, workers who build the buildings that we live in, that we work in. You're helping them go home safe every night. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, construction accidents are way too common of an occurrence. So I think it's a very noble line of work, if nothing else, too. And obviously, I'm sure you get a lot of satisfaction in being able to, put your product out there and to help people in that endeavor.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to be able to come to work every day knowing that our products are actually making a difference in people's lives. You know, sometimes our products do make the difference between life or death. And exactly. I think that can sound kind of floozy at certain times, but at the same time, it's great to stand behind quality products that are making a difference every day. So it's a blessing every day. Awesome.
Yeah, that is great. And it's, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure and inspiration, really, in working with you. And and I don't say that out of flattery, because it is genuine. The stuff I've seen coming from your desk is incredible, to say the least. And actually, that's a great segue. Talking about some of these things, and I know you kind of did an overview the other day as far as nailing down what we're going to talk about here, but we shared with us 3 specific areas that really are more or less transformational in this for the Simplified Safety brand, especially. So the first one that we were going to talk about was for B2B merchants. And I think a challenge that they often face is they have products on the site that, I mean, maybe you could sell them as is, but ultimately they often need customization. They need fine tuning to the end user's requirements. And I think in your case, like selling railings or other safety gear, I mean, it needs to be very customized. But obviously the problem is easy to drop on the site. You're like, okay, send me information, or even maybe the next step would be, let's lock up this white paper behind a contact us, or maybe a pop-up on the page. But you've been through all that process of how do you get people to contact you? Maybe you can share a little bit about your experience in that and how I think you started in that way, but where you ended up in the journey in getting there.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. A lot of the products that we sell really need that guidance or consultation from a salesperson or a project team member. And because of that, a lot of times we can't just sell them online like a typical merchant. We really need to contact them and chat through their problem with them first. So really the first point of contact is after someone's filled out a contact me form or provide me with pricing or more information. So a lot of times that's kind of a big ask. People are really committing to something when they say, hey, can someone call me to talk about this? Especially in today's day and age when a lot of people just don't want to talk to a person. They just want to send emails, which is fine and fair. But especially in our line of work, it's really important to talk to that person directly. So in terms of providing enough information on the page and not too much information to scare them off, it's really been an interesting journey, kind of honing in our message and figuring out exactly what resonates with our customers, as well as gives them the confidence that we're the right person to work with. So when we started off launching our new website on Magento and kind of got everything set up, we initially had a lot of information hid behind modals. And those modals, you had to click a button or a card basically to get more information. And what we saw with that was a lot of the people clicking those cards converted. They ended up requesting more information. But if someone didn't, they were less likely to. So we said, okay, obviously the information that is provided in these is really important and it makes the difference.
Absolutely.
So the first step was saying, let's watch people who do this. Let's watch people who actually read these things. So we set up Hotjar on our website, which you can start off with a free trial, I think, and record people's sessions. And it's a great way, although time consuming, to kind of get an idea of what people are looking for, especially since a lot of people read with their cursor. So you can actually see them read and stumble. And when they say, oh, that's interesting, that means something to me.
Right.
So we started off there and we said, okay, let's take this information out of these modals, put it right on the page, make it easier, make it more apparent. And we ended up seeing a small percentage increase in conversions with that move. So we said, okay, we made the right decision, but wasn't a needle mover. It didn't really blow our socks off in terms of conversion improvements, although anything is great when you're talking about A/B testing and experimentation. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, watch a lot of videos, and Ollie Gardner, the founder of Unbounce, who I actually saw a couple times speak at MozCon. He has this video series called the Landing Page Sessions, and one of the things he focuses in on there is continuity between your advertising and your landing page. And I thought that was a really interesting idea because it seems pretty straightforward, but when you kind of dig into that and experiment with it, you can find some really cool things. So he usually focuses on social media and display ads, and we do some of that, but a lot of our ads are just plain text-based Google ads. But I think the same ideas apply. So basically, thanks to Google's new responsive search ads, we were able to test a bunch of headlines and descriptions that kind of pulled in those specific benefits that we had figured out people obviously really want to see. They don't just want to see features. They want to see what difference it makes to them as a customer. And in doing that, pulling the content out, putting it more on the page directly, being able to consume it easier, and also matching that ad copy and testing that, we were able to see a 50% improvement in conversions from our Google ads. That's
incredible.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, that's way better than I would
blowing your socks off right there.
Yeah, that's way better than I would have ever hoped for. So
exactly. So tell me, how did you? You said you took the information from your customers, like what they found was helpful from these particular products, how did you get that information from them? How did you know what that was? Because obviously that's that's a benefit for a merchant to have a brick and mortar store. You can physically interact with people face to face, but that's kind of a challenge that online retailers have in general. I can't physically talk to my customer who's coming to the site. So how did you get those type of insights?
Yeah, so we started off by mining reviews. So we've had some sort of review system for the last couple of years on our website from past customers, as well as really talking to the sales team and the customer service team. So as crazy as it sounds, you can walk up to somebody's desk and ask them a question about what they talk to people about every day. And thankfully, yes, I've got a great team at Simplified, so they're more than happy to share that information. And really, it's about kind of really listening, not making assumptions about what I think people care about, but actually listening to the sales guys and also listening to customer phone calls. Because, a lot of times when you call into customer service, they say this is going to be recorded for quality assurance. What they're also doing in quality assurance, in my opinion, is also making sure that the person is calling in for the right reasons. So making sure that you're giving them information on their website that is worthy of calling in for. And a lot of that can be mined just from looking at the data that's right in front of you. Through whether it's Help Scout or Yotpo or Trustpilot or any type of review system, as well as, the people that sit next to you at work. So that's where we kind of start, again, focusing on benefits, not features. So while this railing may be compliant, what does that really mean for me? Well, it really means that I get peace of mind that my guys are protected by the right thing, or that my business is less likely to get fined by OSHA and therefore able to help more people with my own product because I'm not having to shut down my plant because of an OSHA violation. Yes. Really taking that perspective and mining that information from the customers directly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you make a really interesting point about customers calling in for the right reasons, because the other aspect of that is somebody is calling in regards to a question that could be or should have been answered on the website. There's probably at least 10 other people that didn't even bother to pick up the phone call, and they pick up the phone and call and maybe went onto a competitor's website or just abandoned the entire search in general. So that information, putting it up front and center, exactly what customers are asking about, to get in front of them even having to call in and ask the sales team. So the benefit there is not only does it reduce the extraneous calls, but you should also be getting the more serious customers as well. Those who are more ready to, at this point, hey, let's start talking about getting this railing on our roof, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's crazy that, especially in niches like ours, that it's a huge competitive advantage to actually listening to people. So many businesses out there don't listen; they just make assumptions. And when you actually listen and then respond to those questions or those things that people are saying and integrate that, especially into copy on your website and in your ads, it's amazing in today's day and age that's a huge competitive advantage when you need to stand out in the noise.
Yes, I 100% agree. Yeah, that is good. So that's obviously your story, and it's kind of a knock your socks off. That's really, really incredible. I mean, that would be almost any B2B merchant's dream, is to increase it by 50, increase their quote requests. They're at least looking to carry on the conversation to the next level by 50%. I think that's incredible. And in those honestly simple steps. I mean, it wasn't, getting into artificial intelligence or crazy math stuff. It was, I say simple, but it took time. It took your research. It took a lot of due diligence, and you ended up with this result. So it's part of, obviously, Actionable Insights, the idea of making things practical. Again, talking more to the B2B merchants, what suggestions would we have for how they can take this? Like, for example, I'm thinking actually, just to start out with, if somebody sells commercial kitchen equipment, maybe the team is getting regular questions. And I think it would be really important to work with the sales team to be disciplined at writing those questions down. Unfortunately, it's easy just to answer an email, but for some reason, I know from personal experience, it seems harder to get that notepad out or open up a Google Doc or whatever and just write, here's this question I get, and let's make another tick mark after it. Okay, I've gotten this question, I've answered this question 5 times today, and I think that can be very helpful. Like, we're getting these questions, these issues, as well as here's customers writing in saying, hey, we love this about the product, and aggregating those reviews, again, even in a Google Doc, something basic. So at least you can readily scan it or search it, that sort of thing. So that would be, that's an immediate takeaway that people can implement. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, like you said, take the time to write it down. I tend to use Google Sheets or Excel, have a column for like category in terms of categorizing questions about the product or about the industry. And then I think a really important step, especially if you're working with a sales team, is to not just ask them once and then never come back. Because a lot of times they'll focus in on the one thing that they talked to someone about 5 minutes ago and not the 100 other things that they talked to people about last week. So it's about consistently building that rapport with your teammates and augmenting their work. Again, like I said, listening to the recordings, because as time consuming as it is, spend an hour a week listening to phone calls, you'll gain a lot more information because, again, it's in a non-emotional state when you're listening to it as well, because people aren't trying to lie to you. Your sales team, they're not trying to say, oh, this is the only question we get. They're just in the thick of it. And when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see all the higher level things around you. So
exactly. Yes.
Like you said, take the time to create some sort of documentation system. Take the time to find out what augmentation system works for you, whether it's listening to phone calls, reading reviews, reading emails, and just start recording. Because even if you don't use that information today, you might use it a week, a month, a year from now, and you'll be thankful that you had that system in place.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing is Hotjar. I mean, that's so easy to install. They have a free version. You can obviously pay for it if you need to watch more sessions. But Hotjar, it's an incredible. That'll be in the show notes as well. But Hotjar is super easy to install, easy to use, and the insights you get out of it, like you said, Ethan, it can take some time to get the insights out of it. But again, I mean, none of the stuff is a overnight quick fix.
Right.
If it was, some of this stuff, like everybody would be doing it. It takes that time, that discipline, and determination, which you have absolutely done incredibly well at. So, that is really good. So and it's kind of speaking of ads and the consistency of those. It brings me to the second thing to talk about here today. And obviously now as we shift focuses to the B2C side, a lot of merchants pay Google and to a lesser extent Bing and other search tools to get their products in front of customers sooner, to display products or to display the images, etc. Google Shopping, for example. So you've had a lot of experience with this and done some experiments and have been quite successful at a couple of things you have done there, among obviously other things. But because obviously with Google Shopping, as we zoom in on that, there's kind of four main components. I mean, you have this one narrow strip at the top of the screen. Then obviously there's the Google Ads, and then there's the organic results. So you only have the picture, the name, the price, and the review. So doesn't seem like a huge amount of leeway in order to, get more clicks to the website. But obviously you've been successful, as you were talking to me earlier about some of the things you've tried. So I'd love to hear what you do and how did it help?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of these experiments and ideas start with just being aware and being open to looking at competitors a lot of times. So we try to put ourselves in the position of the customer. Start with the queries that we know our customers make, and we can look at those via Google Search Console, or in Google Ads, you can see the search terms that real people use. So we start there and actually just look at the SERP. Look at the results that Google, Bing, Yahoo, anybody's giving you. Okay. And if there's ads at the top, open your eyes, look at those, see what stands out. And generally speaking, like you said, there's very few elements that you can influence. Right. And generally speaking, our products aren't always the cheapest, and we're okay with that. So that does affect us in terms of ranking. But then the other thing that really stands out is images. So generally speaking, when we're trying to get a product to have more clicks in Google Shopping, the first place to kind of start is with an image. And a lot of times in our industry, people move fast. They're trying to throw up prototypes all the time. So a lot of it is renderings or just photos of individual components. So my coworker and I, Phil, really try to get our products in use. So whether that's railing on a rooftop, somebody walking along, somebody fixing something, or in the case of Google Shopping, more often, pictures of a railing on real steps in a yard that someone
Yes.
looks at and says, oh, that looks like mine. Oh, those steps look like mine. Oh, that looks like grandma's backyard, whatever.
Yes.
And try to use something that people will be able to say, aha, that'll work for me. And I think, again, starting from that perspective of, if I'm a customer looking to secure my steps at my house, what do I want? Well, I want something that's going to be attractive, something that's not ugly. So we want to make sure that the environment
Right.
that the railing is in is attractive. We want the color, maybe the color's important. Oh, it needs to be black. So it needs to stand out and be obvious that it's black. Okay, maybe we're looking for a light yellow or a white house to contrast against. Yeah, so that's kind of really the track that we've gone down with Google Shopping. And more recently, my coworker Phil has seen a lot of success with those ads. Again, really just focusing on imagery first, which is something that so many people can do with their cell phone. But when you take that extra step to position it correctly, think about the environment, think about the use case, your success rate just
Right.
goes through the roof. And we've seen tremendous success. I'm pretty sure he's seen about a 5% increase just with switching out a photo. Which is
That's
something
incredible.
that takes maybe 30 minutes if you think about it and have the right resources.
Yes.
Or it could take 5 minutes if you, depending on your product and what environment it needs to be in. So little things add up and go a long way.
Absolutely. And especially with such a competitive market. And in your case, you are depicting like railings, which are come as pieces that have to be assembled. And so it's not, while it would be accurate to show these parts in maybe a nicely arranged order, it's not how the end user is wanting to use it. And so it actually seems like in that way it could be a turnoff. And I think turnoff in not seeing how it looks. And so I think it's really cool seeing the final end product. They can relate to it. And it kind of it reminds me of, obviously a lot of times we tend to look at what do our competitors do? Okay, let's copy them. Oh, maybe they're bigger. Maybe we view them as better than us. Maybe we think that they have the head start in this industry. And as such, we would think, okay, let's copy them. But what you're saying here is, I think, maybe just as important or more important. What are they not doing? How are they not taking advantage of this? And obviously, trying to find that can be harder. It's easy to look at something and say, oh, this is how I can pattern this after. But looking and seeing what are they not doing, you're looking at this massive void, this expanse, and it's kind of hard to try to draw out conclusions out of that. But obviously you did, and you are seeing good success with that.
And a lot of times I think a good test of that is to ask someone who doesn't work for your company to look at it. I often ask my parents or somebody that my parents know who is in a situation where they would need this product and say, can you just look at this and tell me what stands out to you or doesn't stand out to you? And that was one of those things that just looking at it, all these look great. The prices is reasonable, but none of them are real. They're all renderings. So that one product that has a real photo tends to stand out dramatically because, oh, that's relatable. And again, it's taking those benefit ideas and putting them in an image. The benefit is it looks nice. It seems simple. It'll fit my stairs, whatever. Again, just focusing, honing in on those benefits by talking to customers, reading what they want, and then trying to represent that, whether it's in copy or in imagery.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And then obviously, if depending on the situation, what you're doing is, and you're taking care of your own photos, but if even like Square Up has their photo studio, which depending on the type of product, type of application, could not be any easier for getting decent, not just decent, excellent photos out there. And again, in those minute, tiny square pixels, that photo can make a massive difference, especially depending on who you're up against. So I think that's outstanding as a practical suggestion. Just go review your Google Shopping and compare with your competitors, and how can you do it differently? How can you stand out from the rest in that? So
yeah, and I
really
think
good.
Especially when you're working at scale, if you're a merchant that has 1,000 products, it might seem daunting to go and get individual photos of every product. And it is, so don't. Start with what means the most to you. Start small. Start with what you have traction on.
Yes.
But it's worth that $100, $200, $300 a lot of times upfront investment to stand out from your competition, because everybody can pay more for a Google ad. What you can't pay for is that feeling, or you can. But you have to be able to recognize it first.
Exactly.
So the first to recognize the opportunities, the first one to take advantage of it. So don't wait for your competitors to do that. You've got to go out and do it yourself first.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's outstanding. Following along in that idea was another experiment that you all did. You were telling me about that recently here is the with the railings and selling, the railings that people can install on their steps, or especially I know my grandmother, I think she actually fell and she didn't have a railing on her steps. And that was a very personal example of how this type of product makes an impact on everyday life. And I think that is so cool. But you talked about some incredible efficiencies, not only increase in sales, but some incredible efficiencies you did as a result of an experiment that really came as a result of analyzing customer data and analyzing previous purchases and how you took that data. Obviously, they were kind of getting to this era of data paralysis. I mean, there's data coming from everywhere, but you took this data that you had that's easily accessible in a SQL database and you parsed it, and you were able to take some real actionable insights from that data. So maybe you can speak a little bit in that story.
Yeah, I think like all great ideas, things start with a problem. So one of the problems we had was there's too much time and too much effort taken between getting an order online for this product, custom cutting it per thing, and then putting it in a box and shipping it out. So our logistics team kind of said, hey, is there any way we could make this more efficient? Is there any way that we could maybe pre-cut things? We could have preset sizes. And the initial reaction a lot of us had was, no, there's no way. That's one of our unique selling points. You can cut it. We'll cut it down to the inch for you. And they said, okay, can you back that up with information? And we said, well, sure we can. We're an internet company. We have everything in a database. Like you said, it's just a SQL query away. So in looking at it, we saw that while we did allow people to get a selection down to the inch, about 65 to 70% of the people just went with a full foot size. And so we said, that's interesting. We had this emotion tied to, well, you can get it whatever size you want, but it didn't seem that was a practical benefit to 70% of the people that were buying our product. So we said, okay, well, let's pick a range. So we picked a range of sizes, mostly set at full foot increments. And we said, we're just going to test this. We're not actually going to pre-cut the products yet. We're just going to put this up as an option on our website, which took a couple of minutes thanks to the flexibility of Magento. And we didn't see a decrease in product sales.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so we said, that's amazing. We just saved a ton of time and effort, and we didn't make less money. So therefore we're making more money because we're saving a ton of time. So, and now it's a practical benefit to our customers that we can tout, that rather than taking 2 to 3 days for them to get their product, they can, or for their product to be shipped out even. Now, generally speaking, it's a 24-hour process because we have pre-cut sizes sitting in the warehouse ready to be picked and packed. And now everybody loves it. Our customers love it because it's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's more practical, it's less confusing. That was another thing that we learned in watching Hotjar sessions, is some people had option paralysis because they were overthinking the down to the inch thing, when it doesn't really matter if it's, for a lot of people, 7 feet or 7 feet 10 inches. Does it really matter? Probably not.
Right. Probably not. No.
And we were able to gain huge efficiencies with our logistics team. And then it's also easier to manage from a content perspective because it's much simpler. So there's less questions people have. It's more straightforward. It's crazy how, again, start with the problem. As soon as a problem pops up, this is kind of an idea I took away from the Toyota Way, a great book if you want to know more about efficiencies in manufacturing. Start with a manual fix first. We started with, let's just change the option on the website. We're not going to do anything with logistics. Zero cost to us. just time, and then amazing insights and and amazing productivity from it ever since.
I think that's incredible because, as business owners, I tend to get into this thinking, okay, I'm going to offer this great service. I'm going to, because I know my customers are going to love it. And I think it's like what I talked about in a couple episodes back. Is this value proposition compelling? Is it something that actually customers find useful? And through this process of experimentation, obviously, it sounds like it was necessitated somewhat as far as trying to, work through how can we improve this efficiency here? But, ultimately, you found that your customers actually didn't care about getting, like you said, 7 feet 10 inches, and more cared about let's get 7 or 8 feet, because we're not talking. Usually, these are like in the air. There's often on both ends, or maybe air on at least one end, and so it's nothing super specific in that way. So, it goes back to Hick's law. Often fewer options results in a faster decision.
Right.
And I'm guessing it also likely results in less communication with the sales team to an extent, But then again, the nice thing is you can always put a note on the page saying, hey, call us for more options, because I'm sure there still is a capability to order it in 7 feet 10 inches if that is necessary, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think this is an interesting case of where if we were to ask customers individually, does it matter to you whether it's exact? The people who ordered that would have said yes, because they cared about that. But when we took a non-emotional perspective, just the data, that told us a different story. And then we tested our hypothesis based on what the data was telling us. And it seems to hold true to this day. So I think that's another interesting perspective on listening to your customers. The loudest thing in the room is what people pay for. So look at what people are telling you based on what they're purchasing, and use that to inform future decisions to improve your business and ultimately improve the customer experience.
Yes, I agree. And it becomes very practical in this way. It comes back to that listening, to even analyzing the data, and where can you find the efficiencies in the fulfillment process, and trying to examine every step of that process. And then maybe a website change does necessitate it, but at the same time, maybe you can figure out a way to avoid rebuilding something, or you can kind of mock it up or even dummy it up in some way to test it out, just exactly like you guys did on Magento, and testing this out. Okay, does this work? Does this not work? Once you have this information, then okay, great. Let's push this efficiency through to the fulfillment part of the order.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that if you ask your fulfillment team, they will tell you a million things that they think can be better. So ask.
Yes, that's great.
Just be willing to ask and be open to their ideas, because again, like I said, we initially emotionally said no, we can't do that.
Right.
But really, when we took a step back, thought about it, looked at the data in front of us, the story was pretty clear. So, be willing to hear what you don't want to hear, and be open to creative ideas or creative solutions. And a lot of times the rest of your team will be able to speak to that as well. I'm sure they've got a million ideas. So just be willing to ask and listen, and then test.
That is awesome. Wow. Ethan, I knew going into this was going to be some great information, and I hope it's helpful to every e-commerce manager, content manager, developer that's listening to this. But it's been informative to me too. So this has been really, really awesome. So I appreciate you coming on and try to keep this short, action-packed with stories, but also practical insights. So I appreciate you coming on and chatting today.
Well, thanks for having me, Joseph. It's been a ton of fun. And, if any of your listeners want to reach out, tell them feel free. I'm happy to chat, and really enjoyed getting the opportunity to share some ideas, and look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
It's great. Definitely. If you do have questions, I'll have link ways you can reach Ethan in notes on actionableinsights.fm/episode 5. So feel free to look at that for more information. So this podcast is available on literally every podcast platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, etc. So make sure that you subscribe to it. And if you have found this beneficial, I certainly hope you have. I've found it incredibly beneficial today. But would you take a minute and leave me a review? So I would really appreciate a 5-star review. That'd make my day. And again, the notes, the detailed show notes are available at actionableinsights.fm/episode 5. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you have a absolutely fantastic week.